I've speeded up the video here for you. I don't really paint this fast at all. So I've started with the inside, and I'm painting just with a very diluted emulsion, and that is covering all of the MDF. You can use diluted, what's the ordinary glue called? You can use that. Forgot what you call it now. And you can also get some MDF primer. So depending on what you've got at hand, but you need to seal the MDF really, because otherwise it would just soak up paint like a sponge. So it's worth doing your preparation. Now, some people talk about doing all the painting and wallpapering and electrics and everything before they assemble their property. The instructions for this cottage when it came, and it's the first kit I've done in a few years, I have to say, and things have changed a lot over the years. The instructions said to assemble before you paint. So I did as I was told, and I've assembled first. And you see here I'm going over the open edges, the rough edges of the MDF to seal those. So I assembled, yes, glued. If you are painting beforehand, it's really important that you don't get glue in the joints of where you're going to glue things together, because that will impact on the effectiveness of the glue. I wish I could remember the name of that paint. I can't. Oh yes, I use water wipes when I've got paint in the wrong place. Just because I've got water wipes, you could use a bit of tissue and some water, whatever you have handy. But it's a good idea to clean up as you go. And this kit came with little sticky labels saying which bit was top and which bit was left and right and all of that. And it took a bit of time because I had to wait for each side of the bit I was painting to dry. But I wanted to paint the undercoat, prime the inside and the outside. Bearing in mind that when you first paint, you know, you're going to have the MDF showing through a bit. So it's really good to do a good prime of some sort underneath or undercoat, even if you're going to paper, because otherwise you'll get that brown tinge showing through the paper. One mistake I did do with this cottage, Bramble Cottage, when I started, was I stuck on the chimney breast, or rather the chimney stack, before I'd done all the decorating, and it would have been really handy if I could have laid the upstairs down on the roof, as it were, to paint on the upside down bit. But hey ho, you know, these things happen. Just go with it. And I'm still painting really fast. So just to remind you, when you get your first kit, I know it's so exciting, and you really, 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 if you're anything like me, want to get it all stuck together and assembled and all of that. But it's really not a good idea to do that. I'm using a smaller brush to get into the little nooks and crannies. Take your time. Get all of the pieces out, check with the contents list that you've got all of the pieces and you know what they are. Then you might want to remove some of the smaller pieces for later on. So like with my townhouse, I've got all the interior stairs and balustrades and all of that stuff, which I will do later. Just like all the finishing parts I've got for the outside of the townhouse, I will do later. So you see there's a little tiny hole for the stairwell. If I'd thought about it, I would have asked Paul to cut that hole bigger for me, but I didn't. But I don't have a jigsaw, so I didn't. I've just left it at that, and it's a little bit of artistic license for the people going up the stairs in the cottage as to how they make it through the gap. the upstairs of the front of the cottage has got these lift off hinges, which actually I really like. They're really useful, and I'm trying to get some for the townhouse if I knew what they were called, because they don't seem to be findable under lift off hinges. I need to take a picture and go into a very friendly local, they've got everything in the back room kind of hardware store. We've got one in Shrewsbury, so I'll pop along to Abbey Hardware one day with my piece of paper or picture showing them what I'm looking for, and they'll probably be able to say, oh yes, that's a blah 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 kind of hinge. If you've already got your window frames stuck into what it is that you're making, just be really, really careful with them, because they're made of usually made of a much thinner density, thinner thickness of MDF kind of material. So these already were stuck in the little roofy bit was all stuck together. So although I'm tempted to hold it by the window frame, you've got to really try not to do that. I really wanted that sticky outy bit because I just think it gives more character to the upstairs, and I wanted to have a window. I didn't just want a Velux kind of window. But I like that I can take the whole of the front roof off and it exposes all of the upstairs. So have a look what you've got in your household decorating stock to see what paint you've got and glue or whatever. So yes, after you've taken all your bits and pieces out of the box and you've checked them off with the with the contents list, you might need to mark some to identify what's what, particularly if you've got, porches and porticos and steps and all sorts of things like that, what fits what. And then if you can, on a fine day, put your mask and gloves on and go outside and start sanding. Please don't do it inside. The MDF dust is horrible for your breathing and for any animals or anything like that. You might just have to be patient with the weather and do, sanding bit at a time when you can to get a good finish on things. But it really will pay dividends. You'll be so pleased afterwards if you've done a good sanding job. I did see a house one time on social somewhere, and the person had rushed to stick it all together, and they'd done a beautiful job sticking it all together, but they hadn't done any of the sanding of the details. And some of them would be really difficult to paint once they're all in situ and glued together. I suspect they may have been kicking themselves afterwards. So a bit of patience pays off. So open the kit, check you've got everything, check them all off and that you know what everything is. Then sand. Do a dry fit. See how everything all fits together, so you know what bits are what. And then once you've done a dry fit, you can then do a gluey fit. And you might, for some larger properties, you might actually need to get somebody to help you. My recommendation is you've read the instructions and you know what you're doing, unless you want that person to help instruct you how to make it fit together. But anybody who's done flat pack with somebody else and tried to do it as a team effort, it can be very stressful. So if it's your property, you read the instructions, you work out how it's going to go together and how much you want glued together at that point, because they might want to race ahead and glue on the next bits because they're excited with it, but actually no, you don't want that to go ahead that far because you want to paint things first before you fit them on. And it is important to remember, this is your project, your property, you do it how you want to do it. And as you're painting it, you really sort of get to know how things are fitted together and how it all works, and the front opening of Bramble Cottage all came intact with the windows stuck in and the door already in place. So I had to paint those in situ. But as you're going, it really does help you plan your colours and how things have to be painted in what order to get them all fitting together right, and all that sort of thing. So what may seem like a bit of a tedious thing with the preparation, personally I hate the preparation when it comes to my big house decorating. I find it very boring. I want to get on with the painting. It's time well spent, and just see as part of the unfolding of your property. It's as it comes together, it starts taking on a life of its own and its personality, and you can start getting the feel of who lives there and how do they live there, and all those details, and have the story developing in your mind of the history of the property as well as the occupants. Because when you have a story behind it, it starts like taking on a life of its own. It takes on an energy. All properties have an energy, and they're not just, landed down on earth the day they were built. If we're living in a house that is older than the day that we move into it, then it has some history and background, and that's what gives it so much character. So get to know your property, work out its history, its background, its story. And in Bramble Cottage, some things I've tried to keep old and as original as possible, but some things are definitely newer, like the staircase inside, as you'll see as it unfolds. Anyway, have fun with this. Enjoy its unfolding.